The foot in the door technique.
Following presentation is packed with nerd talk. It will help you get a decent grade in higher level Abbey psychology. Actually, don't take my word for it, but there's a lot of nerd talk. I warned ya, enjoy!
Hi, I'm Jan. Now this is another Nerd Life video in the topic of psychology, and you should trust me because I just finished IB Psych. I mean, like, I graduated, so something really interesting happened the other day. I got a comment on my previous IB Nerd Life video. If you haven't seen it, you can click it right here. It's the social identity theory, and you can click on it. Did I say that? Buffer it in a new tab while you finish watching this video. Anyway, the comment that I got on it was from a user called Olivia Ann. You couldn't reply to your comment because you didn't have that option available, but she basically said it was really helpful, and that was so cool. Like, I actually did some good and I helped someone. So thank you for letting me help you. As you can tell from the title of this video, I'm going to be talking about compliance techniques, and this is in response to a learning objective, discuss the use of compliance techniques, and this is usually a long answer question, so it's worth 22 marks. If you are not totally confident with the structure of a good essay, then do you want a video on that? I'll kind of put together the structure at the end of the video, so stay tuned. Let's go. Compliance is a form of social influence involving direct requests from one person to another. I'll give you 2 compliance techniques in this video. You really only need 2 to 3 techniques in your 22 marker essay. You have the choice to go kind of more in depth into 2 of them, or kind of explore them in less depth across 3 compliance techniques. So I chose the 2 compliance techniques option and went more in depth with that. The first one, foot in the door, otherwise known as FITD. You can write that after you've written foot in the door, the full term, in your essay, because, you know, time is precious in exams. The foot in the door technique increases compliance with a large request by first asking people to go along with a smaller request, and that's basically all you need to know. But you do need studies to support your points, obviously, right? So I recommend Freedman and Fraser. They did their study in 1966. Freedman and Fraser posed as volunteer workers and asked homeowners in the state of California to place big, ugly drive carefully signs in their front yard, and the rate of compliance was a mere 17%. Then they approached a different set of householders with a smaller drive carefully sign, so less ugly. With the small sign, nearly all of them complied. With this other set of householders, the ones with the smaller sign, 2 weeks later, Freedman and Fraser approached them again and asked them to replace it with a bigger, uglier drive carefully sign, which matched the sign in the first set. This time the compliance rate was 76% in comparison to the compliance rate of the first set, which was only 17%. So as you can tell, there's a huge difference. A lot more people agreed to display that ugly drive carefully sign. The foot in the door compliance technique exercises the principle that humans just want to practice consistency and commitment. As Cialdini stated in 2009, people are more likely to agree with a request that is consistent with a prior commitment. So an off the top of my head example for foot in the door technique, don't use this example in your essay, okay? This is just me trying to kind of clarify it, maybe make it a little more clear and less formal. Foot in the door, oh, can I have a sip of your drink? Just a sip, right? Yeah, sure, of course. And then maybe a few minutes later you're like, oh, can I have another sip? Actually, can I have half of it? Yeah, thanks. Increase your request gradually. Start off with a small one, because what you really want is that huge one at the end. The second compliance technique I like to call, no, it is actually called the lowballing technique. The lowballing technique is changing an offer. Oh no, my notes just fell on the ground. Haha. Well, force me not to read from it. Lowballing is changing an offer to make it less attractive to the person once this person has already agreed to it. There is a degree of deception here. You can argue with your ethics and whatnot. So the major steps in lowballing include, number 1, making a good deal. This good deal will attract the customer, or client, or whomever you're trying to convince to accept it. Number 2, you need an excuse to make the deal seem less attractive and something that you cannot control. So they're more likely to sympathize with you and kind of just keep on going with their commitment. And number 3, the customer is very often likely to still go along with the new, less desirable deal. Now for some empirical research. Heard of Berger and Cornelius? They did a study in 2003. They got a female caller to ring up a few students, well not a few, like a bunch of students, asked them politely to donate $5 to a scholarship fund for underprivileged students. And as any experiment would contain, there are a few conditions: the low ball condition, the interrupt condition, and the control condition, because fairness. In the low ball condition, the female caller rang up a student, made the request for a donation, and with that donation request, offered a smoothie coupon for, a smoothie. And then likely the student would have agreed to it, by which time the caller apologetically said, "Oh, we've run out of smoothie coupons. Are you still willing to donate? We've just run out, I'm sorry." And 77.6% of the students who were on the receiving end of that call still agreed to donate. In this second condition, the interrupt condition, this time the female caller rang up the student, a different student obviously, a different set of students, made the request for a donation with the offer of a smoothie coupon, but while giving that offer, she interrupted herself. So it's like, "Oh, and with this donation, you'll be rewarded a smoothie." Actually, no, we were going to give you a smoothie coupon, but we've run out. So she interrupted herself before the student agreed. This time, the compliance rate was only 16%. And the third condition, the control condition. A call was made, the request for a donation was made, and there was no offer of a smoothie coupon at all. This time, 42% of the students agreed and donated. The low ball technique, like the foot in the door technique, is based on a level of commitment. Bear in mind that this technique is only effective when the individual has made a public prior commitment. Individuals feel obliged to act in accordance with their initial public agreement even when conditions have changed. Because you want to look good, right? You got a rep to hold. That is basically the two compliance techniques. As I promised from the very beginning, here is a basic, very safe essay structure, and it is not the usual, 5-paragraph thing. No, do not ever do that. My school likes to use something we like to call the PEELD structure, PEELD. It stands for point, evidence, effect, link, and develop. Usually, back in year 9, we didn't do the link and develop. The linking and developing part is what shows critical thinking, which is essential to a level 6 or above. So first in the intro, you would like to establish the who, what, where, when. That is mostly in English, but it also applies to psychology. You want to say what you are talking about, the definition of compliance techniques, and then what specifically, foot in the door and lowballing. You also want to mention the researchers' names behind each of these techniques. For the definition of a compliance technique, you may also want to add in a quote by Cialdini. In 2009, Cialdini stated that compliance techniques are tactics that humans use to persuade others to comply with their appeals. You will leave the defining part of each of those techniques for their individual paragraphs. So I don't really like to think of it as structuring the essay with paragraphs, because you will start a new paragraph once you make a new point, okay? Do not only have 3 body paragraphs. Have as many as you want. So the first section is the foot in the door section. You will first define what the foot in the door compliance technique is, which I mentioned earlier. It is increasing compliance with a large request by first asking people to go along with a smaller request. Then you will outline the experiment by Freedman and Fraser in 1966. Bear in mind, outline it. It should not be longer than 6 lines, otherwise I'll take up too much of your time. Frankly, you don't have the time, and it is not relevant either, so marks may be deducted if you go through in detail. Like, no one cares about the experiment. Just give us the outline and the findings. Then for the second E, the effect, explain how it worked. For example, in the foot in the door compliance technique, you could say it worked because humans want to be consistent with their prior commitment. For L, linking, link everything you just told us about to the definition of compliance. Okay, first of all, I'd like to apologize because my camera did cut off, but you know what? You do not fail unless you do not learn from your mistakes. So, new experiences, new learning opportunities. Anyway, I was talking about linking everything you just talked about in your foot in the door section back to the essence of compliance techniques, or the essence of a foot in the door. So an example of linking everything you just talked about back to compliance techniques is perhaps quoting somebody. Cialdini said in 2009 that foot in the door is particularly effective when trying to solicit donations of time, money, effort, even body parts. And then D, develop, the final part to your section. Develop. What do you mean by that? You could follow up with a secondary experiment. Now, this experiment does not need to be conducted by those same researchers who did the main experiment that you used to describe the technique. It doesn't need to be by the same researchers. However, it does need to be relevant. Relevance is the most important part of any essay. It doesn't matter which subject you're taking. Everything you talk about needs to be relevant to the thesis. You could develop your argument by pointing out some counter-arguments, something to challenge what you have already delivered. Or you could go ahead and take the opposite approach and bring across something that will support your argument and make it even stronger than it already is. That is what you need to do for your first section, for foot in the door. Now for lowballing, you just do the same structure. P, your point, E, your evidence to support the point, effect, how the evidence supports the point, link, linking everything you just talked about back to the essence of compliance techniques, and develop, pointing out supporting arguments or further counter-arguments. I like to compare the two techniques. Now, this is not necessary. It is if you want a level 6 or above. It really showcases your critical thinking skills. It will help you sound less like an 8th grader. You know what I mean? You will contrast the strengths of foot in the door against the limitations of lowballing. And conversely, you put the strengths of lowballing against the limitations of foot in the door. And with these two combinations, you can really identify the appropriateness of each application. So for example, you could say foot in the door is more appropriate for, getting donations of time, money, effort, while lowballing is probably more effective if you want to complete it in a short period of time, if you don't want to wait that duration between the first request and last real request. And finally, conclusion. We all need it. Do not skip out the conclusion, even if you have very little time left. You have 6 parts to conclusion. Outline, foot in the door, outline, okay? You do not need to mention Freedman and Fraser or any experiment to do with it. You just outline it, kind of restate the definition of it, maybe with more depth, because you have more understanding now. Outline, lowballing, and then state that foot in the door is better for a certain type of situation, and then state that lowballing is better for another type of situation. I personally like to insert a few principles here. I'll give you some right now. Berger in 1999. Now, Berger is the same guy from the Berger and Cornelius experiment in 2003 for the lowballing technique. He stated, initial requests shouldn't be so large that people will refuse them. He also stated that foot in the door requires a delay between the initial request and the later larger request. And finally, the 6th element of your conclusion is applying your whole essay to real life. Now, I know that the whole essay, well, you better have written the whole essay in the 3rd person, because I think this, I feel that, you, we, the examiner will not care about your opinion, you, we, whatever, chuck it out the window. No one cares about you. As harsh as that sounds, the essay is about the syllabus and what you have to offer, not necessarily what's in your heart, you know what I mean? So for the last few sentences of your conclusion, I suggest that you write about how compliance techniques, or the specific techniques that you mentioned in your essay, are relevant to everyday life. For example, compliance techniques are relevant to everyday life because da-di-da-di-da. Like, because we often need people to do favors for us, or we often have very large requests, but we don't know how to approach them and how to actually get people to agree with them and get onto our side. After you've applied the subject of your essay into real life, you're done. I did film a lovely outro originally on my camera, except it wasn't exactly recording, so I'll do it now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video did help you out. Discuss the use of compliance techniques. That is one of my favorite LOs, to be honest. It is a 22 marker, it's a long answer question, so good luck with that. I will list the studies and names of researchers in the description box down below if you wish to check that out. That will probably help, so you can go on and research them more in depth and probably have it in text rather than just me talking about them. If you haven't checked out my last video already, it is called Air Travel Hacks, and I share with you 7 air travel hacks or tips that I've gained from my years on Earth. I have been fortunate enough to air travel quite often, okay? I know not everyone has it, so I'm really blessed that I could have had this opportunity. Yes, it is right here. You can click it. Yeah. Okay. A big shout out to Olivia Ann again for inspiring me to continue with this Nerd Life Psych series. Yeah, it should be a series, right? Just specifically on psychology. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more of this stuff, or if you want some more help on IB in general. I do take high-level English if that's helpful for any of you. And I will see you on Friday. Bye! What am I talking about? I don't think I'm supposed to